Hi, I'm Stephen. I'm the CEO and founder of Starling. We're a Washington, D.C. based company. We talk about ourselves as an applied behavioral sciences technology company. We build enterprise tools that are used in the financial services sector. If we think about the public narrative around problems in the banking sector since the great financial crisis, the dialogue has evolved from the complaint that the banks were too big to fail to today what we hear more often is that they're too big to manage. And unfortunately, we've had plenty of recent events that give credence to that view. As we're out talking to the financial services firms that we serve, when we ask them about their greatest asset, almost invariably they all point to their people. When we ask them about the greatest risk facing their organizations, increasingly they point again to their people. Now, it's management's job to unlock the value creation opportunity represented by your human assets, and it's management's job to manage away the conduct-related risks tied to those same assets. But how is that to be done, right? How is someone who is sitting in New York managing an organization with 250,000 people around the world able to understand what's driving the behavior of all the employees in all parts of the world at all times, right? That's a major challenge for CEOs. It's something that regulators are increasingly focused on. They're asking firms to verify that they're managing their culture and they're managing it in a way that leads to desired behavior, not the opposite. So what do we do at Starling? We built what we call a platform of augmented management intelligence tools that combine behavioral science, AI, and organizational network analytics. So the behavioral science allows us to say something about what it is that makes people tick, why people do what they do. AI allows us to distill signal from the masses of electronic communications data that ties with predictive reliability to target behaviors of interest. And then using O&A, we map those insights out across an organization. We call that technology predictive behavioral analytics. And as that name hopes to suggest, it's an analytics engine that allows firms to anticipate and forecast behavior of their employees. The use cases usually fall into one of three buckets or some combination. Our tools are used in the context of creating value. They're used in the context of preserving that value once it's been created, and then restoring value after some event that led to impairment. Let me get a little more specific about that. So in one case, we're working with a large global bank that's asking us, how is it that we can better manage team dynamics to increase the productivity and profitability of that team? That's a value creation opportunity. In terms of value preservation, we're working with the largest European bank, looking at its three lines of defense. So the system by which different people, in this case thousands, who have been assigned risk management responsibilities across the organization globally, how do they collaborate with one another in order to better identify and manage operational risks? And in the context of value restoration, we'll just think about what we saw at Wells Fargo when there's been a major issue around mis-selling. How do we anticipate where that same sort of misconduct may appear next? Who do we serve? It's a number of customers, both in the back office as well as in the front office of these organizations, ranging from, say, the regional head of a private bank within a large commercial group, the CRO, or perhaps the global head of, say, the retail division. How do we do what we do? So the secret sauce at Starling is, again, behavioral science. It's an understanding of what is it that shapes human behavior. Most management focus on formal incentive schemes and formal sanctioning systems that they believe will shape human behavior. The data doesn't support that, and neither do they understand it from behavioral economics, which demonstrates that people are very often motivated by non-rational things, to include invisible norms inside the organization. But because they're invisible, they're pretty hard to manage. So we've been able to demonstrate that with electronic communications metadata are signals that tie with predictive reliability to particular behaviors that management either seeks to encourage or to manage away. We call that the digital fingerprint for that behavior. And we're building a whole library of these digital fingerprints that tie to a host of behaviors that management at firms are concerned about. And by layering those digital fingerprints on top of the social graph, we call it the trust graph of the organization, we're able to anticipate how behavior is likely to spread. Right? Behavior is contagious, and just as in epidemiological models that allow you to track and then forecast the spread of a pathogen through a population, we're able to track and forecast the spread of a particular behavior through an organization as well. So at a time when every aspect of the banking sector has been transformed by technology, in the realm of management science, we're still using the equivalent of the Stone Hand Axe. And we're using surveys, online ethics training. Who here wants to do another survey? We at Starling think that there's a better way of bringing quantitative data to the qualitative challenge of human relationships, and that's what we've built at Starling. Thanks.
Thank you. Angie?
A couple of quick questions.
Sure.
I couldn't figure out whether you were live or still, talking to clients. Mm-hmm. And second, how do you measure effectiveness in a solution like this?
Sure. Let me answer that in reverse. So during our beta phase, we did a number of projects with a range of organizations, not just the financial services sector, and globally, where an organization had an event transpire. They knew what the outcome was. They knew who was involved. They gave us their data. We ran it through our model. We said, here's who we think was involved in doing what. And of course, we could back test and see what our accuracy rates were. And they were in excess of 90% accurate using the technology that I've just described. We are live. We went live earlier this year. We initially came out into the market being talked about as a people analytics company. And we were steered into a number of organizations to HR. Had very interesting conversations. One, absolutely no business. HR doesn't have a seat at the table. They don't own the data. They don't have the budget. So we pivoted then to focus on the back office and on risk. And we made ourselves known to all of the regulators in the banking sector globally and at the highest levels. And I do mean globally. And those regulators are particularly concerned about this. In fact, in the UK, Mark Carney, who's the head of the Bank of England just last week, has said that for financial firms that cannot demonstrate that they're managing culture and conduct-related risks adequately, they're going to be subject to higher capital reserve requirements. And then if you get it wrong in the UK, there's legislation in place called the senior managers regime. This kind of legislation is being adopted in a number of other jurisdictions where CEOs are held personally liable for misconduct events that transpire on their watch. Whether they were aware that it was going on, whether they were culpable, you're held personally liable. So for any of you who are in the insurance industry out there and you're writing D&O policies to cover these kinds of risks, I think you'd want to see something like this put in place in order to better manage those risks away. So we're working with some of the largest banks in the world today, and in scope of work discussions with several more.
So what data are you mining to create these trust graphs?
So it's electronic communications metadata, and I want to emphasize that. It's metadata, not text. We're not doing sentiment analysis. We're not doing NLP. We don't even touch the text, which makes us less of a big brother proposition. We find that the firms that we work with are happy about that. But more importantly, we're not capturing anything that's sensitive. So in the, God forbid there's any sort of data leakage, all I know is that Joe emailed Sally at 2 o'clock and some big, top-line metadata. But when you have enough of that data, and our models have been trained to distill signals from that data, you're able to be very, very highly predictive.
So just email?
Email, chat, phone, any sort of digital e-coms. We're actually in discussions right now with Bloomberg about incorporating iBloomberg. We're in the process right now of signing a partnership agreement with Symphony, which is the chat business that was spun out of Goldman Sachs, to use their data as well.
Do you augment that with actual interviews and things like that to hone the model, or you keep it purely electronic?
Purely electronic. But it's a feedback loop, right? As we're working for multiple organizations, we're seeing how the technology is being used. The machine learning tools increasingly learn. Goldman Sachs recently said, you guys are going to be the industry utility for this stuff.